All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn for the SALT Talks. My name is Patty Schramm. I'm the Parent Resource Trainer Coordinator for the SALT Talks program. Today during our Lunch and Learn, we wanted to look at what can I ask my SSA? What is their role? How does that play a part in my life? This was a big question I had while going through transition or being introduced to transition. Just who is my SSA? What can I ask them? Does it go beyond your regular meetings? Like, do you have to wait once a year to meet with them? All these little questions and what they actually do for you and how you can actually get this position, the SSA, how do they work for you and your child? So we have Mary Hils today here from the Butler County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and we'll let her go ahead. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Mary, if you want to go ahead and start, and just let me know when you want me to switch slides.
Okay, great. Yes, I work for Butler County DD, and I'm a transition team lead for the transition team. So thanks for coming to this. So we can go to the first slide. So a lot of people do ask us, because we call up when we use the acronym, like I'm so-and-so's SSA. So the first question is, what is an SSA? So it stands for Service Support Administrator. I think we all have the same title throughout the state of Ohio, and I'm employed by the county. We can assess the needs of the child and the family. So usually we will go ahead and schedule a meeting, and we can complete referrals. We can research anything the parent has questions about. We can go to school meetings. We can be very active, or we can just be someone that you reach out to when you have a question or a need. So it can look however you want it to, because it's a volunteer. It's not a mandatory service that you have through us, through Butler County DD. It's volunteer. So is that the word I want to use? It's you guys are, saying that you want to have our services. So it's not mandated.
So Mary, let me ask you this. I know in our county, they have to go through the eligibility process. And then at age, when they age out of high school, they will then get an adult SSA and a program plan. So I just wasn't sure, do you guys have to reach out to people if they want continued services?
So it can look that way, or it can, so yeah, let me back up then. So you will complete a referral.
Okay.
And then it'll be decided if you are placed on an information and referral caseload, which is basically you as the parent will reach out to the SSA whenever you have a need. And it might be like once every year, it might be once every couple of years. The SSA doesn't need to go to the home and complete any paperwork, or, even like follow up with monitoring. It really is parent reaching out to the SSA if you're on the information and referral team. So that's people that just need something every once in a while.
Okay.
If you have more needs, your child has more needs, you will go on to an SSA, like more active caseload.
Okay.
Yeah, and at that point, it can look really however you want it to look. Like I said, we can go to meetings, make referrals. We can, call meetings we can like create a team of maybe school personnel. It just depends what the family is needing. We can research things. We can, reach out to whoever and help. And that can be, like I said, more intense. You can text us, you can email us, you can call me at any time, and we'll get back as soon as possible. Everyone does their job a little differently, so that can be confusing too, because you might have had an SSA that maybe isn't as active, and then you might have another one who's reaching out to you. But we are trying to make it that we'll reach out to the parent if you're on this caseload, this SSA caseload, at least once a month, just to check in with the family.
Okay. Thank you, Mary, for explaining all that.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, what else? So, I can talk more about what we can do, or what does an SSA do for school-aged children and their families. So school-aged is from 6 to 22, but we also could have children on our caseloads from, as young as 6 years or 3 years old. We can assist the family with, like I said, we can educate the family on the child's disability if that's something they need, because a lot of times, you get that diagnosis and then you're trying to survive and carry on, and you might not have time to find out more about the disability or find out about services in the community that can be helpful, or even like a children's hospital has different like places that you can go if you have a child with Down syndrome. I think it's the Thomas Center, and if there's different centers that they offer, so we can provide that information. We can reach out to those places and kind of report back to you on what we find and what we think would be helpful for your family. We can also talk about, like I said, outside services like OT, speech, PT, because that can look totally different than if your child's getting those services at school. So we do have families that have their children get those therapies outside of school as well as at school. And the reason why that looks different is because if they're getting therapy in the school, that therapy has to relate to school goals, where if you're in the community getting therapy, they can work on other things, like things that are difficult at home, or just things, developmental milestones that you think are difficult for your child. We can also, a big thing we do for children on our caseload and even the transition team is we look at like what's available during the summer, because that's a hard time usually. They're not in a routine anymore. So we can look at camps and different groups. We can reach out to, if they're open with OOD and they're of that age, like 14 to 22, we can find out if the summer youth program is available and if that would be something for your child. So we can help you plan for this summer so that goes a little smoother. We can suggest like utilizing our family support service money, which I'll talk more about, but you can utilize that for respite in the summer, and you can find somebody that you trust and you can pay them like $15 an hour to, take the child out in the community and spend time with them. Let's see, what else do we do? And like I said, we make a lot of referrals, and I'll talk more about those actual referrals. So we can go to the next slide. So issues at school, we can go to the ETR and IEP meetings and just be there for the parent, and we can also kind of remind them what they wanted to talk about. So, when you're in those meetings, it's really hard and you're trying to focus. So we can just be that gentle reminder and say, like, didn't you want to talk? Did you want to bring up this because you had talked about it before? So we can kind of remind them what they wanted to talk about. And then I just talk here about the ETR. That's every 3 years. And sometimes you have to ask for different professionals like OTs, PTs, and speech therapy to actually do the evaluation. Sometimes in the school, they'll say, well, we didn't reach out to whoever. Let's just say it's the OT. So sometimes, the parent will have to say, well, I really want the OT to do this evaluation, because this ETR is every 3 years, and the IEP goals for the next 3 years go back to the ETR. So it's really important to have those evaluations done during that time. Let's see what else. Yep, you can go to the next slide. So how can we use the family support service funding? And I just talk about this a lot. It's a pot of money, which can be confusing because sometimes people think it's, put aside for their child because we tell them that their child's eligible for it. But it's a pot of money that renews every year in January 1st. And when it's gone, it's gone. So every year it's a little different on how the families can utilize it. Last year, which was really nice for the families, they actually had an extra $5,000 if the parent in the home, or both parents, if there's 2 parents in the home, they had to be working. They could utilize that $5,000 for daycare. What happened though was all of this FSS money was finished by, I think, the beginning of July. So they've kind of opened it up, and just this year it's $1,500 per family, and they can use it, you know, for respite, for camps, for adaptive equipment, for counseling and training, for therapy. And how that looks is you just reach out to your SSA and we begin that process. And then you get a packet in your email, or it can be regular mail, kind of telling you the next steps and what you need to fill out and what you need to submit.
And I
So-
just wanted to interact here, Mary, that just,
Yeah.
this money, this funding is different for depending on the county, your county board. It
Yes.
changes depending on which county you are looking at.
That's a great point. Yes, it definitely does. And like I said, for us, it changes every year. It's just a little bit different every year based on last year's, you know, how it went last year. We can go to the next slide. So we have inside our agency, we have a division called Family Focus, and it's positive behavior supports. It's free to families. Actually, we open it up, I believe, for adults as well. So this is like a short-term positive behavior person going into the home, figuring out what's needed, what the child or adult is struggling with. And then they can do a lot of visuals for the family, but it usually is a very short term, like 6 weeks of working hard, you know, deciding what is difficult and coming up with some ideas and solutions. So that's a free service that we have with the county, and it's really, really helpful. The people that deliver those services are very knowledgeable. Oh, and who can refer? So you can just reach out to SSA. Once again, we can refer to that department. A lot of families want to know about the waiting list assessment and why we have it. So this is just my understanding of it is that it used to be when your child qualified for our services, they were put on a waiting list, and it was thousands of people long. When your number came up, you were able to get a waiver. But what was happening is there were families that were having serious needs and weren't able to get the waiting list or the waiver. So what they did is they took everyone off that big list. It was called Fix the List. I think they did that about 5 years ago. And now it's you reaching out to your SSA if you feel like there's a current need, which means within the next 30 days, you're going to need some kind of support and funding, or if there's an immediate, no, the current need is in the next year, I'm sorry, and the immediate need is within the next 30 days. So we can do a waiting list assessment, and we're trying to show a need. And then if there is a need, they will be put on a waiting list, but it's much, much smaller. And like I said, if it shows an immediate need, it would be within the next 30 days. A current need would be within the next year. So again, you would reach out to your SSA and they would start that process. It is a last resort because we do have that FSS money that you can utilize. And then usually if you're still in school up to the age of 22, it is more difficult to show a need because the child's in school, they're getting services, but there is some exceptions. So if you feel like your family needs more support or funding, we can always start that process. Sorry, we can go to the next slide. This is just a list of things that we kind of can help with. We actually have she's not an SSA anymore, but she was an SSA, and they created a position in Butler County DD for just people that need help with Medicaid and filling out that application and following up and the yearly reviews or redetermination. So we have someone within our county that has that, but we can start that process. We can give you the name and phone number. We can also, like, if you call the SSA up and say, I don't know what this letter means, because a lot of times they're sending letters and they're kind of delayed. So you might get a letter saying that they've been approved, and then a week later you'll get a letter saying they were denied for some reason. So it's very, very confusing and upsetting because you usually get those letters on the weekends, right? So you can reach out to the SSA and then we can call, her name's Stephanie Lynch with Butler County DD. We can call her and kind of say, hey, can you look into this and see what's going on? Or we can give you her number as well. We also do referrals for wraparound, and those are for children that have more intense needs. And what it is it's through Family First Council, and they will have a coordinator go to the home and do a really nice family history, kind of look at all the family strengths. And then they'll create a team, and we can start that process, and then we're part of that team. But they'll create a team maybe from church members or friends, family, other professionals like mental health. And so we'll all get together. It could be every 2 weeks, it could be once a month, and try to help the family and support them. Because these really are families that need a lot more help, and they're really, really struggling. So we can do those referrals. Again, the waiting list assessment. We also have a referral that we can do for Marikey, and that's like another wraparound team, but it's more for dual diagnosis, and it's more concentrated on the mental health. But they also provide services, obviously, for the developmental disabilities. So it's a dual diagnosis, mental health, developmental disabilities, and we can make that referral, and we're a part of that team. On that team, they have they call them a recovery coordinator, and they'll be in the house maybe 2 or 3 times a week. They can't transport, but they can do a lot of just getting to know the person and, you know, kind of problem solving. They have a nurse on staff. They have a psychologist they can talk to and review the case with. And so it's a really nice service that can be helpful. And it's usually for kids or transition age teens that are in and out of Children's Hospital, and again, really struggling. So that's a service where we do a referral. We also just give a list of kind of like mental health services in the county, like Butler County Behavioral Health. I have a list of them. And some others. And within those mental health agencies, there might be more intense services as well. So we can help with that process and, you know, find out like what services they offer, and we can report back to the parent. We can also be a member of the team for Ohio Rise. And if you have Ohio Rise, it's usually that your child is in and out of Children's Hospital and it gets flagged, and it's a Medicaid service. So they create a team, and then we can be on that team, but they kind of take over the services, especially the mental health. And then we also have children on our caseload that are involved in children's services. And also if a child is involved with the juvenile detention, we can go to those hearings. We can sit with the family when they're in court and, you know, just be a part of that team as well. And then these are just the list of schools that we are in and out of: Butler Tech, Edgewood, Fairfield, Hamilton, City Schools, Lakota, Madison, Middletown, Monroe, New Miami, Princeton, Ross, and Talawanda. So what questions do you have in regards to what your SSA can do for you?
So a couple of things I wanted to make mention before anybody, I mean, you can raise your hand or jump in too as we're discussing here. So when our son was diagnosed, he was diagnosed late. We knew that he had a diagnosis or an issue, and we didn't start the process till he was in high school. But the county board, when we finally got our services with the county board and started connecting with the county board, they were able to get us, we were on a waiting list for children for many years to get that diagnosis, that evaluation, but they were able to speed the process along. So we got a little quicker because services were all hindering on this diagnosis. So we were able to get into children's. The other thing I wanted to point out is any concerns, reach out to your SSA, anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
That is true. Like, we've heard it all. We're not shocked. We're not upset. We're not surprised. I mean, we can help. We can help with things that, you would think there's no way that I'm going to talk to the SSA about this. We can help with anything.
So one of the things that, like, your son or daughter fall in and out of the tub on a regular basis. Maybe they slip and fall, just talk to your SSA about that. And just say, hey, is there something that can be done to help protect, help with injury or not injury? My son or daughter wants to change jobs or get a job, they can help you with those things. Just, any questions or concerns, run it by your SSA first is what I want to say.
Yeah, so that's, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
That's
interrupt,
okay.
but, so yeah, any kind of like diagnosis where there might be like, adaptive equipment that's useful. We're always going to continuing ed. We just went to one on for people that are blind, and there's these certain glasses that will like take a picture of what they're looking at. So if they're in the grocery store and they're having a really hard time, well, they can't read the label. I mean, they're legally blind, but not totally blind, but they can't read that label. These glasses, and it's also a handheld device, can take the picture and read it back to you and tell you the ingredients in that. If you have if you're allergic to something and trying to figure out if you should eat it or not. So, I mean, we're always learning about that kind of stuff. And if we don't know, we will research it or we will find out for you. We also can set up, technology is really important. And we are trying to be more mindful of how technology can help our people that we serve be more independent. So we have some agencies that we can reach out to and schedule meetings with the family to just find out what's out there as far as assistive technology and safety. So those are some things that we can do as well.
The other thing I want to make sure, your IEPs, I mean, you had mentioned, Mary, to attend IEPs. If you're having an IEP, believe me, invite your SSA, invite anybody that would be on your team. If they're over 14, you could be looking at OOD, which is Opportunities for High-Ends with Disabilities. They can attend with you as well, but the SSA, who you could ask them, who can I invite to our IEP or the ETR coming up? It's always helpful to have someone else there. Believe me, I did many IEPs by myself and it was quite overwhelming every time. So having a second ear or a second person there that knows your child is very beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. And some of us have a lot of experience in schools. Like, for instance, I used to work in schools. I used to write IEP goals, I used to write IEP goals, not for for therapy. So a lot of us do have different knowledge, a knowledge base. We're all different. They don't just hire like social workers. We have people that were teachers before. I have my occupational therapy assistant license, which I don't use in this job, but I have that and a lot of knowledge because I've been in and out of schools, charter schools, and private schools and public schools. So I kind of can put that all together and talk about those services and offer that to my families. And we're very diverse in the SSA department. Like, we have a lot of knowledge in different areas. Some people are really strong on the behavior piece. I'm really strong on the sensory piece. So it's really interesting. And that's why I think it is confusing sometimes, because it looks so different depending on what SSA you have or you have. So that can be confusing.
And you had mentioned during your presentation about someone helping with some of the forms and things. And I know the benefit analysis representative in each county can do that. So we have Brittany, it's with Warren County, and Andrea is with Montgomery County. But I know for the benefit analysis person, they can give you more information if you can, send out an email to me too, and I can find out. But I know Tammy Disney is in Montgomery County, and Latasha Olinger is in Warren County.
We have 3 people in our county that are certified to do that, and they're title is employment navigator, but they all took the test, the benefits analysis test, and can be very helpful with all of that.
And I know Beth Reisner, she was one of the speakers when we talked about your county board and the transition, who's on your transition team last week, and she was one of the ones that spoke. So but yeah, reach out if you have any questions about these forms. I mean, there is knowledgeable people throughout the county boards on many aspects. Let's see, I also wanted to mention, you had said about camps and funding, and like I had said, the funding can be different throughout for different counties. But one year our son wanted to go to camp, and I just reached out to the SSA. I said, hey, is there any funding available? And they were able to find some funds, whether it be through the county board or maybe another, or I think it was the ARC, but there was another organization that was also had some funding available, and it helped pay for some of those summer camps.
Yeah,
So,
and there's grants out there that we can access to. If we don't know, like what I love about the SSA world is we kind of know who's strong in what knowledge. And so we'll reach out and get that answer for you. So if we don't know, we'll just contact another SSA so that we can get back to you and help with that.
does anybody have any questions? Because we're starting to get close to 12:30, but I wanted to make sure, does anybody have any questions at all for anyone, for Mary, or any questions about the SSA position or role that would play and how it would play in your child's journey through transition or beyond, before, during, beyond? You have an SSA that goes with you for life. It's like you can always have one that goes with you. You don't age out as such.
No, you don't age out. And we can talk about future planning right, when they're 3. And then definitely we are talk a lot about future planning once the child turns 14, and we do work more closely with OOD and the school district. So we usually are invited to those meetings, but it is important to note, you'll have to invite us to those, like if the child's younger, it's not usually, I don't think, something on the teacher's mind maybe to say, hey, reach out to your SSA. So you would, as a parent, have to do that on your own.
Yeah, and that is so important. And one of the things that when Mary was talking, she had talked about different positions. Just take that information, and go back to, if you're from a different county, if you're not in Butler County, you can go to Montgomery County or Warren County or Greene County and say, hey, I heard about this service, or this, they help with, say, like mental health or family services or something. What do we have that's available in our county? You can take that information back and just ask your SSA or your county board, what is equivalent to this? And because they all have different names. I have found like something is called different in each county. It might be the same position, but it's all different in the sense of the name. So, and that gets confusing too.
Yeah, every county does everything a little differently. And so that is, I would think that would be hard sometimes to sift through that. Yeah.
It does get confusing. And that's why when we have these meetings, I like to make sure parents know the same service might be offered in a different county, but it might be under a different title or different name or called something different. Just ask, just ask. And you don't have to wait an entire year for a meeting or until next month, or, if something comes up, just email them, contact them. When something comes up, just, reach out to them. You need to keep that communication open, and it's very helpful.
And in Butler County, they provided us with cell phones, work cell phones. So you can text us, and it's really nice. I actually do a lot of communication through text because, how everything gets buried sometimes in emails. And so I will do a text, or the parents will text me, and it's fine. You can text us at night. We're not going to, it won't bother us. It's a work phone. So in the morning when we start work, we will reach out to you or whenever we can, but you don't feel like because I know you're probably, at work or something and don't think of anything until you sit down at night and you're like, oh, I wanted to send this to the SSA. These are work phones, so feel free to text and or leave messages.
Very good. That's very good point too. Another way of contacting them.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Mary, for talking about the SSA role. And just going over that in more depth of what an SSA actually does and how they can help us as a family. I'm going to go ahead and close the recording. So if there's any other questions, you can unmute and ask your question. But I want to thank all of you for coming. 1 second.